She came from nothing. She had no money. She had no future after the Suits series in Canada.
Markle was a yacht girl. As author Kirby Sommers suggested, that the then Meghan Markle likely spent time with Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein.
No, I choose people who don't want to be written about, on the whole, and whose lives are shrouded in mystery, and they've climbed the greasy pole.
Tom Bower says the mask has finally slipped. For years, Meghan Markle sold the world a fairy tale, the perfect duchess, the modern royal rewriting history. But behind the polished smile, insiders say the cracks were always there. Today, the illusion is shattered, and the world is finally seeing the real Meghan Markle.
And she's been married, she already has a kid from someone, or divorced. I mean, everything. You're not supposed to be in a Catholic family or whatever.
Long before she stood on the steps of Windsor Castle, Meghan was already learning how to perform for an audience. Not the world stage, but the smaller ones. School plays, modeling gigs, the uncertain world of Hollywood auditions.
Of course, she lied about never having Googled Harry when she gave an interview early on. We know from her friends that's not true. And she turns out to be a serial fabulist. I mean, the lies from this woman come regularly, and they're bold. They're big and they're bold.
Like many strivers in Los Angeles, she understood early that image was currency. But for Meghan, it wasn't just about landing roles. It was about shaping how people saw her. Friends from her early acting years described someone with relentless drive, polished, ambitious, and unwilling to settle for background roles. She worked on her diction, her walk, even her handwriting, treating every detail of her life as part of the presentation. It was impressive, but also telling. While some actors stumbled into roles through chance, Meghan seemed determined to design her own destiny. Still, there was always tension. She wanted to be both relatable and untouchable, both the girl next door and the star. She wrote a lifestyle blog, The Tig, where she curated a picture of effortless sophistication, posting travel notes and style tips. But behind the carefully arranged photos was a young woman pushing against limits, frustrated that Hollywood doors didn't swing open fast enough. And that frustration carried weight. According to Tom Bower and others who observed her rise, Meghan's biggest challenge wasn't talent, it was acceptance.
And of course that's because she's also a great, in that sense, an actress. She knew exactly how to play. And the point about Meghan is, it's easy to dislike her.
Roles were scarce, stereotypes were suffocating, and every rejection seemed to fuel her hunger to climb higher. Each setback wasn't just professional, it was personal. Every no became another reason to sharpen the performance. This is where the mirror effect began. Meghan wasn't simply being herself. She was building a version of herself that could survive the industry's cruelty. The question is, when you spend years constructing a role, what happens when you finally start to live it? Because once Meghan entered royal life, that same obsession with presentation followed her. But unlike Hollywood, this stage didn't have a script she could control. For Meghan, the turning point wasn't the royal wedding. It was realizing that the line between life and performance had vanished years earlier. She wasn't just acting on screen. She was living inside an ongoing audition. Every interview became a test. Every outfit choice was strategy. Even charity appearances were filtered through the lens of, how will this play in the media? That mindset isn't unusual for celebrities. But what made Meghan different was how completely she fused her identity with her public image.
She's a Hollywood B-list to be charitable actress. She was a social climber. Her whole thing is about image, so I can see why she's so easy to upset when it comes to bad press.
By the time she met Harry, Meghan had already been practicing for a role bigger than Hollywood could give her. Her time in the spotlight, from brief TV roles to her blog and red carpet appearances, taught her that control of narrative mattered more than raw talent. She learned the rules. Project Warmth, appear accessible, but always keep a layer of polish that makes you seem untouchable.
She was a pretend princess. She was an actress. Actresses are people who play princesses on TV. She then became a real princess, but she didn't like being a real princess because pretend princesses and real princesses might look the same. They might wear the same costumes, but their lives are totally antithetical one to another.
And when the royal opportunity appeared, it wasn't just romance, it was the ultimate stage. But there's a danger in living as your brand. When cracks form, the audience doesn't just question the performance, they start questioning you. Meghan had mastered the art of curating a life that looked seamless. But the palace wasn't Hollywood, and Britain's press wasn't her Instagram feed. The same precision that worked in California looked rigid and rehearsed in London. And that shift didn't just expose Meghan, it started reshaping Harry too.
I think Harry is a very complicated person. He's not very intelligent and undoubtedly remains damaged by the early death of his mother, Diana.
For Harry, Meghan didn't just represent love, she represented escape. Escape from a family history written in grief. escape from relentless scrutiny, escape from being forever defined by the tragedy of his mother. But that escape came at a cost. The moment Meghan entered his life, Harry's identity began to shift. Once seen as the mischievous but grounded prince, the soldier who spoke candidly about service and loss, he suddenly found himself recast as the supporting actor in Meghan's ongoing drama.
And he couldn't cope with the criticism because in his view, he is a target.
This wasn't all Meghan's doing. Harry carried deep wounds long before she arrived. Growing up, he had watched Diana both adored and destroyed by the press. That left him fiercely protective, determined to shield Meghan from what he saw as the same machine that had chewed up his mother. But in defending her, he began losing himself. Step by step, Harry drifted from the man who once insisted on speaking his own mind to someone echoing Meghan's words, repeating narratives that felt rehearsed rather than raw.
He's a very complicated, depressed, unintelligent man who is seeking a role and has got really nobody on whom he could rely, which is in the end where Meghan stepped in. I mean, a needy man met a woman who would help him with his needs.
Friends noticed it, the public noticed it, even the palace noticed it. And this is where the heartbreak lies. The love story that began as a promise of freedom turned into a cycle of control and sacrifice. Harry believed he was protecting Meghan, but many saw him as surrendering his own voice. The irony? In trying to escape his mother's ghost, Harry walked straight into a performance that echoed her legacy in ways he may never have intended. Do you think Meghan planned every step, or was it just luck? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. And while his identity blurred into Meghan's script, whispers from her past, the ones she fought hardest to bury, began resurfacing. And those whispers weren't about love or legacy. They were about reputation. Every public figure carries rumors, but some rumors stick because they hit a nerve. Not because they're proven, but because they feed into a larger story people already want to believe. For Meghan, that rumor was the so-called yacht girl past. Long before the royal wedding, whispers circulated of Meghan being spotted on luxury yachts with billionaires and Hollywood power players. Photos, anecdotes, and gossip painted a picture. Some said she was networking, others claimed something darker. The truth? Hard to pin down. Even Tom Bower admits much of it lives in the shadows of hearsay. But in the court of public opinion, shadows are enough. What mattered wasn't whether every story was real. What mattered was the pattern. Meghan built her brand as a self-made outsider, a struggling actress clawing her way up the ladder. The yacht rumors cracked that narrative wide open. Instead of grit and hard work, critics painted her climb as charm, calculation, and proximity to power. And here's the twist. Harry knows these whispers exist. He's not blind to them. Yet he stood firmly at Meghan's side, defending her story as one of determination and love. But to outsiders, the contradiction is glaring. How do you reconcile the fairy tale romance with whispers of ambition so strategic it looks less like fate and more like a long game? In the end, the rumors may say less about Meghan than they do about us. Because the moment a woman enters the royal spotlight, the world stops asking if she deserves her role and starts hunting for proof she doesn't. But while whispers can damage a reputation, what really began eroding Meghan's image wasn't rumor. It was the testimony of people who worked closest to her, people who claimed the performance never stopped, even behind palace walls. Front stage, Meghan was polished. Warm smiles, graceful hand waves, carefully chosen words. Backstage, some insiders paint a very different picture. According to reports cited in Tom Bower's book and echoed by former palace staff, Meghan's perfectionism often turned into pressure. Pressure that left aides drained, shaken, even in tears. There were whispers of bullying complaints. Staff who claimed they felt humiliated or broken down. Assistants who left faster than new ones could be hired. Whether you believe every account or not, the sheer volume of turnover around Meghan and Harry raised eyebrows across the palace. Something clearly wasn't working. But here's the uncomfortable question. Was this cruelty, or was it control born from insecurity? Meghan had spent her life fine-tuning her image. To her, every detail mattered. The angle of a photo, the wording of a headline, the choreography of a public appearance. Perfection wasn't optional, it was survival. That obsession may have looked ruthless from the inside, especially to palace staff accustomed to more distance and hierarchy. Meghan demanded a level of control they weren't used to, and when the palace pushed back, the relationship collapsed. Harry, once again, was caught in the middle. To his wife, he was her defender. To the palace, he was complicit. And every time he chose Meghan's side, his ties to his family and his own identity as a prince frayed a little further. The tragedy is this: what Meghan saw as protecting her brand, others saw as exploitation. What she saw as strength, others saw as hostility. And those cracks behind the scenes didn't stay hidden for long. They spilled into the public eye, fueling the sense that the image Meghan projected on stage didn't match the reality behind closed doors. And when the curtain slipped, the world began to lose patience. Because once the whispers of control and contradictions hit the headlines, Meghan's carefully crafted narrative started to unravel in front of millions. And as the cracks widened, the public couldn't look away. Curiosity turned to scrutiny and admiration into doubt. At first, the public wanted to believe. Meghan was the breath of fresh air, the woman who would modernize the monarchy, and Harry was the prince finally finding happiness after years of turmoil. But it didn't take long for the narrative to flip. The Oprah interview, sold as a groundbreaking revelation, was dissected line by line. Some viewers saw raw honesty. Others saw exaggeration, contradictions, and carefully staged emotion. Suddenly, Meghan's authenticity, the very thing she had built her brand on, came into question. Then came the high-profile deals: Netflix, Spotify, book contracts. On paper, they were golden opportunities. In practice, they fizzled. What should have been cultural milestones turned into bloated productions that felt more like therapy sessions than compelling content. Spotify cut ties, Netflix projects stalled. Even Hollywood, a place that thrives on reinvention, seemed to quietly step back. Public patience wore thin. What once looked like bravery started to look like endless complaints. Instead of empowering speeches, critics saw performances. Instead of love and unity, they saw calculation. And slowly, what Meghan and Harry offered stopped feeling like a movement and started feeling like a brand running out of buyers. Harry, who once stood out for his blunt honesty, now looked like a supporting actor echoing Meghan's lines. And for the first time, the cracks weren't whispered in back rooms or leaked by aides. They were visible everywhere. In headlines, in ratings, in the awkward silence of an audience tuning out. When the curtain finally slips, the question isn't whether Meghan won or lost. It's what the performance left behind. For Meghan, the cost is credibility. Once positioned as a trailblazer, she now faces skepticism at every turn. Every smile is doubted, every speech dissected, every move seen not as genuine, but as strategy. That's the weight of losing authenticity. Once it's gone, it's almost impossible to earn back. For Harry, the cost is identity. He isn't remembered as the soldier who served with pride or the prince who once joked his way into hearts. He's remembered as the man who surrendered his voice to protect the woman he loved, only to fade into her shadow. That transformation isn't just public, it's personal. Because when you give up your own narrative, reclaiming it is far harder than walking away from a title. And for the world, the cost is disillusionment. The couple who promised to stand as rebels against the system ended up looking like another extension of it, using pain, spin, and brand power to stay relevant until the act wore thin. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Meghan and Harry's story isn't over. Scandal can destroy, but it can also evolve. Redemption, reinvention, even genuine healing. They're all possible, but only if the performance stops and the real people step forward. The tragedy, and the opportunity, lies in the same place: identity. Meghan has spent her life constructing roles. Harry has spent his life running from one. If they can stop chasing scripts and start facing truth, maybe, just maybe, their story could change. Because at the end of the day, ambition builds empires, but only authenticity keeps them standing.